Today is Wednesday, 19th August 2026. Good morning and welcome to the breakfast show. Good morning, Sir Leone. This is the program that starts your day with analysis and different views on news and current events. I am Sheku Smile.
And I am Esther Sapo. Our quote of the day is from Canadian educator Eric Butterworth, and it says, "We don't change what we are, we change what we think, what we have." I'll go again. Our quote of the day is from Canadian educator Eric Butterworth, and it says, "We don't change what we are, we change what we think, what we are."
Coming up in this edition of the program, Good Morning, Sir Leone, the Inter-Religious Council raises concern over constitutional reform stalemate.
Still on the Constitutional Amendment 2025, SLPP NP Honorable Selu discusses the issues further.
And also in this edition of the program, Good Morning, Sir Leone, Chief Minister's Office embarks on service delivery clinics with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies.
Well, on that note, that's how we invite you to participate in the program by sending your text message to the number displayed on your screen or send your comments on our Facebook page, slbc.sl. The program is Good Morning, Sir Leone, live on the Sir Leone Broadcasting Corporation status.
Watching is Good Morning, Sir Leone, live from Broadcasting House in Englandville in Freetown. Now, the Inter-Religious Council of Sierra Leone, IRCSL, has called on lawmakers, the judiciary, the President Julius Maada Bio, to act with patriotism and national consciousness as Parliament grapples with a statement over the ongoing constitutional amendment process, representing Muslims, Christians, and other faith communities across the country. The IRCSL commended both the government and the opposition and for their earlier agreement for national unity, which paved the way for the creation of the tripartite committee. That committee, comprising government, opposition, and development partners, produced 80 recommendations aimed at strengthening governance, democracy, and electoral credibility.
In its statement, the IRCSL emphasized that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and must not be treated as the property of any political party. The Council expressed grave concern over the current parliamentary impasse, warning that delays in resolving constitutional requirements for amendment risk undermines national peace and stability.
Well, in the studios now to talk more on this is Alhaji Ibrahim Bari, Executive Member of the Inter-Religious Council. Good morning, Alhaji.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now, you are calling on stakeholders, including the President, to treat this issue of constitutional amendments with highest level of patriotism. What really are you trying to say? It is that you are sensing some kind of patriotic moves, insofar as this amendment process is concerned.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start by saying that the Inter-Religious Council is always sensitive to conflict or to issues that will undermine our national peace and unity. It was established during the war, so it's a wartime, interfaith body, so we observed what happened recently during the parliamentary debate on the constitutional amendments, and we saw something that is not helpful in maintaining our national cohesion, peace, and unity. So we decided to issue this press release. I think it's about 12 paragraphs. It's lengthy according to our previous press releases. Normally it's 6 paragraphs or 7. To show concern that we don't want to go back. After the 2023 election, we know what happened in this country. That's why we give a brief background where we came from 2023, when the APC boycotted Parliament, and that caused a lot of problem. So we end up having the ANU, the Agreement of National Unity, tripartite. So, and this is a constitution now, constitutional amendment, which is principal law of the country. So, as moral guarantor, we say, okay, let us do something and remind all stakeholders that this particular process is very, very important. It's all stakeholders should be reminded. Of course, they know, but as human beings, you have to remind us always of your duties. While they are doing the amendment, they should, remember that it's about unity, about the peace of this country, and also they should continue to engage. We don't want to see any disruption in parliamentary proceedings, because that alone will signal, that something is going the wrong way. So that's why we came.
Now, Alaji, in your previous, there was this conference at the Goodmorning Conference Center, the Goodmorning International Conference Center, where as Inter-Religious Council, you had a position there. Has that changed in any way? Your position was, first past the post. That was presented to the public. Has that changed?
No. This position paper was submitted to Parliament.
No, I'm talking about the meeting at the Goodmorning International Conference Center, where organizations, the chiefs, the Inter-Religious Council, and your position then was that you preferred the first past the post to that of the peer. Has that changed?
No, that is a position paper.
Okay.
It is there. It's a position paper. If there's any changes, we'll make it known. By the way, this position paper is a result of a wide consultation with our congregants. Okay. If you go through it, they said the PR system is good, but majority prefer the PFTP, the FPTP. Okay, first past the post, and they gave reasons.
To vote of the PR.
Yes, they gave reasons. And let me tell you this in brief. Not many people know this PR system. Yes, the PR system is in our law. Yes, it was implemented in 1996. How many people knows that? Okay, the current generation, the younger generation right now. That was 30 years ago. Okay, it was implemented I think 2002, honorable if I'm not mistaken. 2002 to 2026, that is 24 years. So most of the young people who actually are very, very excited, or very excited, and they don't know about the PR system. That's what I was saying. The PR system itself needs to be introduced wider or proper.
So are you suggesting?
So that's why, according to.
Are you suggesting that Sierra Leone is not yet ripe enough for the PR? Because people lack the understanding. People don't know much about what PR is and how it is done in other parts of the world. Is that what you are suggesting?
Based on the findings that we did, during the consultation, most of them say they're not familiar. It is here. They are not familiar with the PR system. Okay. They said how they understood the PR system. It will disadvantage them. It gives more power to the parties.
So, Chef,
than the individual.
So, Chef, all what you did in your position paper and presented to Parliament, was any of them considered? Because now we're way past that. The bill has already been passed, and that the Speaker had referred it to the Supreme Court for interpretation. Was any of your concerns included in the Constitutional Amendment Bill?
Well, this whole parliamentary debate has been reduced into the vote, not so. So I think we all know what happened, you know. So that will answer your question. Although I remember if the Honorable Minister of Justice during his presentation, he said all position papers or all views of the Honorable Speaker has been studied, or I don't know the language that he used, but it doesn't mean that all position papers or all views expressed during the consultation will be, you know, reflected in the final analysis. But what we are saying is that we are calling on all stakeholders, you know, to continue to engage and to think about the interests of the country and to sustain the national peace and unity that we have. That is a paramount objective of the internet.
So how would you generally assess what's transpired in Parliament from the debate going to the voting process? Because after the passing, there were a lot of concerns by lawyers here and there. There have been a lot of disagreements as to the understanding of what Section 108 says and what 91 says. So as a interreligious body, what is your general assessment so far?
Our general assessment is that there is a misunderstanding or there is a stalemate. We don't want that. But we are not lawyers. We are not here to interpret Section 13, Section 81, subsection 3, you know. What we are saying, what we saw, is not that good for the country. Because when we start having walkouts or maybe other way of boycotting proceedings, it's not good for our democracy. So as moral guarantors, we are calling on all stakeholders, you know, to continue to engage and find a solution based on the Constitution. Based on
now, allergy now, there are calls from certain quarters, I mean from organizations, right-based organizations, that the president should not append his signature to that bill. Because now it is only the president, you know, everything that is in the hands of the president. It is the president who determines what happens next. So right groups, you know, or interest groups are now calling on the president not to append his signature. So do you hold that view as interreligious council?
What we are saying as interreligious council, okay, let us go through the process, let us do it correctly, and let us think about this country, about the peace and unity of this country. As moral guarantors, what we are saying.
Continue to with us in the program is Sheikh Alhaji Ibrahim Bari, is the executive member of the Interreligious Council. We'll move on to another issue. The Sierra Leone People's Party-controlled Parliament in Freetown approved the Constitution of Sierra Leone Amendment Bill 2025 this August 2026 after 97 members voted in favor. SLP lawmakers proceeded with a simple majority vote after opposition of People's Congress members walked out in protest over the 2/3 threshold requirement. Lawmakers like Honorable Indolo Moiwo Ngevao argued that the interpretation of parliamentary rules applied by the Speaker, Honorable Senator Solomon Thomas, was valid, maintaining that preliminary questions required only a simple majority under Section 91 rather than the full-scale 2/3 majority under Section 108.
Now, contested voting thresholds indicate that SLPP members maintained actually appealed to pass the remaining clauses and the bill itself after the APC boycotted or backed by paramount chiefs MPs. The past legislation features landmark adjustments, including proportional representation framework, dual citizenship, provisions for holding public office, and a reversed presidential election threshold.
APC leaders criticized the SLPP approach as a procedural bypass of Section 108 of the 1991 Constitution, which normally mandates a 2/3 majority for constitutional changes. Following the approval, the Speaker referred lingering constitutional questions regarding the voting threshold to the Supreme Court for an advisory opinion within 3 months, a move criticized by outside legal minds who question the authority of the Speaker rather than the executive branch to make such referrals.
Now, in
Well,
the studios, we have a member of parliament representing the SLPP, and he's Honorable Mustafa Musa Selu, representing Moyama District. Good morning, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's my pleasure.
Now, I know that the debate is getting tough, and it's getting tense, and also interesting. In this country, one thing that is that we cannot see citizens' participation in politics, in national issues. Before this time, they will say not to be business. But now it is everybody's business. In every place, if you go to the marketplace, people are discussing the constitution. So it means that democratization is taking place.
That is why we are having different interpretation as to you see even no lawyer saying it should be 108, it should not be 91. So there's been a
I told we are joking. It's almost everybody's here now. Yes. Anyways, we continue with the conversation. Now, you've seen the backlash. Following the passage of that bill in Parliament, you've had the arguments. Grammar has also come in. In or off. What does that mean? All of these things are happening, and the discussion is getting escalated by the day. Tell us, do you see this as a constitutional crisis or a constitutional challenge that this country is facing at present?
Thank you very much for having me here. Let me make it very clear. From Esther, she presented that the SLPP lawmakers approved the passage of the bill. It's not the SLPP lawmakers. We have 97 votes in favor, and the SLPP we are 81. So meaning we have paramount chiefs, we have APC MPs who participated as well. Yeah. So let me just make that clear. It's not just SLPP, it's a whole, it's a parliamentary decision, and comprising of the entire membership of parliament, that SLPP, APC, and PC MPs who participated that day. This whole issue of constitutional review or amendments came as a result of the Leone Peace Accord in 1999. Yeah, we are. If you read Article 10 of that particular agreement, it speaks to the issue of constitutional review. That most of our issues we had during the 1991 Civil War was as a result of some constitutional issues. So that was why they recommended that we review our constitution and make some changes in that. So that one took to the to cost of the what you call the total reconciliation, and then we came the Justice Kawan came, and the 81 membership had over 10,000 motion papers interviewing people across this country for 3 years, 2013 down to 2017. So all what we are deliberating on is not a new thing. It started way back with the past regime, the Justice Kawan recommendations. If you look at those recommendations specifically spoke to the 50+1, spoke to the issue of the PR. Look at the recommendations look at the white paper, in fact, that were presented to the ministers by then, the APC, by then the Attorney General, who was in charge, presented that document to Parliament. And now they are the same people that are rejecting their own document that they presented to this country before. So for me, I see it is not a constitutional challenge, it's just a matter of personal interest that has come to play. Because if you have put a document together, you presented this document to the president and then by extension to the nation, then 8 years down the line, this document...
So is there room for change? If they choose to make changes?
So, excuse me, so if 8 years down the line, somebody else has taken the seat, then wants this, your own very documents to be now approved or now see the light of the day, then you are coming back to say.
But I think the honorable, I think the argument here is yes, they agreed about ABC and D should be done. But now they are saying that in politics, maybe a second is very, very important. Decisions could be changed or could be altered. Could be rescinded as the case may be. They are saying that it's not about the provisions, it's about the procedures used to pass this bill. That is the argument. Sure. I think you know what that is the argument. Sure. It is not about those provisions in the bill.
Sure.
It's about the procedures used to pass.
I was just laying the premise of the discussion here that all what is in that bill emanated from the Justice Kawan, the tripartite. There is nothing new in that particular document that's coming from this government as they
No, that is not there.
No. Let me just come to the procedure.
They said the argument is procedure.
Let me just come to the procedure. I'll come to the procedure, then I will talk about the merits and demerits of the PR. Because for me, the PR is already in the law, in our law book, section 38A. So even if we say today we're not going to deal with this constitution at all, PR still remains our law book. So
as an alternative.
As an alternative.
It will remain as an alternative.
Yeah, it's as an alternative. It can be used at any time based on the prevailing circumstances. Yeah. It can be used at any time, at any given time. Yeah. So the burning issue here is the 50+1. Let's not shy away from this. That is it. So the Constitution, Section 108. I have seen our responsibility as parliamentarians as enshrined in the Crown Norm 105. We are the legislative body, the supreme body to make law. 105.
That is undisputed.
120.
That one is.
Yes, yeah. Let me.
It's not argument.
121 and 2 talks about judiciary. They have the powers to interpret law, to interpret the constitution. They say anything that has to do with constitution, be it civil or criminal, has to be taken to the Supreme Court for interpretation. And let's not forget, we have these 3 organs. They are independent bodies. So what we have done here, as parliamentarians, when this bill darkens the well of parliaments, the Attorney General's office took us to Committee Room 1. You have representation there as well, SFBC, the media houses, civil society, party representatives across the country, where they took us that bill, line by line, page by page, everything. Comments were made, then we now took it from there. Motion papers were presented after that engagement, and the political parties were engaged. There was a whole retreat for this at okay. We are each of what we presented that day in that way. We are agreed.
But according to the APC, that was Toke was not a success. They said, Toke, according to the APC, the APC argues that Toke also ended in stalemate. They said you never agreed.
It never ended. Most of these things we are doing, like the president in his speech before to the nation on the constitutional amendment, it was very clear that we have to vote our conscience. Those who represented this part, the opposition, were in agreement. But you see, during the debates, all the stakeholders of APC were right in the well. So you know what it means when you have your political godfather sitting by you and you are coming to take a decision that you've agreed before and now they are not in favor of that agreement, you're going to change.
So where the contention is with regards to the interpretation of 108B and section 91.
Okay.
That is where the bone of contention because according to the APC, for any law, that is what they said, to be in the constitution that is to be changed, it should be on a 2/3 majority. And according to them, 2/3 majority has to be
to any law
in the constitution and
now the constitution is different. I think 108 applies mostly to the altercation. Now this one is like
there's a contention with regards to 108 and section 91.
Let me help you and the general public. Let me read this. Permit me to read this particular section. Then you're talking about now grammar has come into play. Thank God I attended two very senior schools in this country, the Prince of Technical School. So let me now take you to section 108. This much talked about 108.
Because that is where the conversation.
Let me now take you there. Just hold on. Let me now take you to 108. Yeah, I will take you to 108.3. 108.3. A bill for an act of parliament enacting a new constitution or altering any of the following provisions. Yeah? Following provisions of this constitution. That is to say, or altering any of this provision, that is to say, this, the definite article, when I say the definite article. Now, it now came to say A, B, C. Now, this section, chapter 3. Chapter 3 in its entirety. Yeah? It's in chapter 3, sections 46, 56, 72, 73, 74, 2, 74, 3, 84, 2, 85, 87, 105, 110, 119, 120, 121, so on and so forth. These are the entrenched clauses. And what we did, check the records. If any of these sections were tampered with in this particular amendment, then before I finish, it is very clear. It's a matter of grammar, semantics, and understanding. It's very clear.
Having read that, go also to 91.
91 says. You hold on. I'm reading the constitution entirely with the standard.
Yes,
we have
so
to. We hold on. I take it to 91.1. Voting in parliament. It did not say voting by sections. So voting in parliament. That's a side note. Except as otherwise provided in the constitution. Any question proposed for decision. Any question. It could be any question. If you ask if you are a man or woman, it's a question. Yeah. Any question for decision in parliament. For decision, it doesn't talk about critical. It doesn't talk about this. It doesn't. It's any decision. Yeah. Shall is a mandatory. Shall. It doesn't say may. Shall is mandatory. It's a mandatory provision. Shall be determined by a majority of votes and members present.
Okay,
No. These are outside.
That is the catch there now.
Excuse me. Members present and voting. I will now tie this. I will now tie that to section starting orders 44. Division of questions. All questions in the House or a committee of the whole House, except as otherwise provided in the Constitution, and these others shall be decided by a majority of the votes of members present and voting.
So, Honorable, read 108.
108.
You read 3 just
Let me come. Allow me to come. I have read 103, 108, 3. I have read 91.1. I have read Standing Orders 44. Yeah. What we did that day, we had 146 members in Parliament present, and we voted. 2/3 of that is 97, and we got that. That's our position. 149, 2/3 should be 99.33. Mathematically, you cannot round up any figure that is below 5. If it was 99.5, they can round it to 100. Let's say for argument's sake, let's say 100. The APC MPs requested for permission from the Speaker through the leadership, and they were excused out of Parliament. So these members who took, 3 of them took excuse. We are not present in Parliament. Yeah, it is the responsibility of APC to have said no. We have critical things to discuss here. You're not going. Stay for this voting. We did. Some of our members were out, and they were recalled. All of them came and participated. 81. So whose responsibility is that for absentees on the part of the opposition? When in the
APC quoted 182. That is what they quoted as any alteration. That it has to be 2/3 members of Parliament.
When you and I is the same position that laid out the framework. You know why we did not touch the fixed election dates from November, 2nd week in November, 1st Saturday in November. Do you know why? Because that will have tampered with 85. That is entrenched. Because if we are going to shift that particular day to 2nd Saturday, 1st Saturday, or whatever Saturday in November, then it was going to tamper with the life of Parliament. Life of Parliament ends the very day it was.
So do you really think?
So that's why.
Now, because of time, do you really think this bill is going to be assented by His Excellency the President?
We are asked by His Excellency the President that we should vote our conscience on that particular day, and we should not vote by party lines. And we voted our conscience as SLPP MPs. The parliamentarians voted their conscience. The APC MP who participated voted their conscience. So if that is I cannot question the decision of the President, but we have done our assignment as enshrined in the Constitution. And then for the PR, it's a very my religious scholar was saying that they don't want to see anything that undermines the peace and tranquility of this nation. I think you should go with the PR, because PR PR is the basis on which peace and stability is anchored in terms of political arrangement. Let me take it to this point. When we had the first past the post in 2018 to 2023, we had the rankings around the Tambaka election, by-election, the by-election at 110 that brought to the attention of international communities and every political leader and stakeholders in this country. We saw what happened there. But it's from 2023 to date, we've had 5 to 6 MPs that we've lost their seat by death or whatever. What?
Due to the PR system.
People don't understand that.
Due to the PR system.
They were replaced. They were replaced peacefully. The next person on the list was replaced by those people who
Some arguments are saying the PR system does just open the political space.
How do you want the political space to be open more than this when we have MPs?
We only have 2 members of 2 parties in parliament, and before now we had different parties in parliament.
That is the assignment to measure up so that they can have seats in parliament. But now you go to the north, nobody can say the north is their stronghold. Nobody can say south is their stronghold. We have APC MP where I'm coming from, Oyamba. We have SLP MP in Koloko. We have SLP MPs in Karine. We have SLP MP in Falaba. We have a district council chairman in Falaba. We have APC. We have SLP MPs in northern, in western rural, in western urban.
Some people don't even know who their MPs are.
That is inclusivity. And the definition of constituencies is based on a definition. It can be this is your constituency, SLBC is your constituency. The whole of Sierra Leone can be a constituency. The whole of it can be a constituency. It depends on the interpretation. So for me, this matter of argument, let's rely on the same constitution that we are referring to.
Are you saying this because for now, you know, on the other side of the political divide, this particular bill favors you, and it's now is it about convenience?
It's not a matter of convenience. It's a matter of national inclusion, peace and stability, equity, and the matter of development.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are looking at the core values of democracy. It's not about personal interest, because if we are looking at personal interest, we are in charge. We will have created more constituencies, more districts, so that, because that is what in the bill again, anything that has to do with constituency, boundaries, have to do with the census, those results cannot affect the 2020 election.
Okay, continue.
So that is how patriotic we are on our side, and that's how we are nationalistic.
But you not answer the question.
What's the question?
I think His Excellency is going to.
So do you want me to sit here and question the president's decision? I am not in position to question.
No, but he said he was the one who actually canvassed you guys to vote in favor of the bill.
I said the nation.
The nation.
The nation.
But you are the ones voting.
No, the president said in his word that let's vote our conscience. Let's don't vote on political lines.
Okay.
That is why we have APC MPs who participated and voted for us.
Okay.
So we did not vote on political lines. If we have voted, it's one MP, then you say, oh, SLP, this is SLP. But the paramount chiefs, these are moral guarantors. These are custodians of the land. Okay. You have APC MPs that participated. Do you want to call it an SLP bill? It's a national bill. We have to own this bill. This bill has a lot of goodies in it.
Okay, continue to serve us in the program. He is Honorable Mustafa Musa Selu, representing Moyaba District, and he is a member of Parliament. When we take a health tip of today we'll look at what is endometriosis. Endometriosis is when tissue that is similar to urine tissue grows someplace else. It can look like various types of lesions or organ structures that have adhered together, which can cause painful periods and other symptoms. Let us watch and learn from a health tip of today.
Hi, my name is Dr. Kara King. I am section head of our minimally invasive gynecologic surgery group, as well as program director of our fellowship. What is endometriosis? Endometriosis is when tissue similar to the lining of the uterus implants outside of the uterus, and it can really implant anywhere. The most common locations are going to be in the pelvis, so behind the uterus on what we call the uterosacral ligaments or the pelvic sidewalls. It also can implant within the ovaries, which are called endometriomas or cysts within the ovaries. It can implant on the bladder, on the bowel, but even in the upper abdomen on areas like the diaphragm or the appendix. Endometriosis has different stages of disease, so stage 1 through stage 4. So stage 1 disease is going to be more superficial lesions, and stage 4 disease is going to be deeper infiltrative lesions. What does endometriosis look like? So endometriosis can look like a lot of different things laparoscopically when you're actually in the body, which really adds to the complexity of the disease. So the most common appearance of endo is oftentimes these red-brown lesions, but it also can appear as red, as white, as fibrotic lesions, which can almost look like thicker plaques, as papillary lesions, which are clear, almost bubbles on different organs, or even just a lot of adhesions or fibrosis. So adhesions can be when all different organ structures are actually adhered together. So the bladder can be stuck to the uterus, the rectosigmoid colon can be adherent to the backside of the uterus or the cervix, and the ovaries can sometimes be stuck together and then stuck to the back of the uterus or the rectosigmoid colon. How is endometriosis diagnosed? First and foremost is going to be patient symptoms. That tips us off on diagnosing this disease. The main symptoms are going to be painful periods. Sometimes this does progress to actually having pain in between periods as well. And we also see patients with painful urinating, painful bowel movements, as well as painful intercourse. Second is going to be physical exam. So understanding what the pelvis feels like. Do we feel endometriosis nodules? Do we feel adhesive disease? Step 3 is going to be imaging. So ultrasound plus or minus MRI. And then we include surgical excision. And that typically is with laparoscopy, where we look at everything in the pelvis and upper abdomen, diagnose it, excise it, and look at it underneath the microscope for pathology. What happens during endometriosis surgery? Surgery really looks like typically a minimally invasive approach. So that can be with conventional laparoscopy or the assistance of a robot. When we go in, we look at everything. So we look at everything in the pelvis and the upper abdomen. Your uterus, your cervix, your fallopian tube, your ovaries, your pelvic sidewalls, everything behind your uterus, between your uterus and your rectosigmoid colon, everything in front of your uterus, between your bladder and your uterus, all of your bowel, your appendix, your liver, and especially your diaphragm as well. And so we use very specific cameras and specific patient positionings to make sure we don't miss any disease. One important aspect of endometriosis surgery is excising or removing the lesion entirely. What this allows us to do is, number one, remove the entire lesion and know that we got to the very base of it. It also allows us to excise lesions over important structures like the ureter, the bladder, the bowel. And it also allows us to actually get tissue to look at underneath a microscope to confirm by pathology it is what we think it is. You may hear people talk about the word ablation, which is when you can actually just burn the lesion. In our practice, we promote full excision when possible for all those reasons that we just described. What is the prognosis after endometriosis surgery? It is considered a chronic disease, and so it unfortunately can return. Diagnosing it early and then having it fully excised are really great ways in helping minimize the disease and optimizing outcomes. Your physician may also discuss with you the option of hormonal suppression or some form of birth control to keep the disease at bay. Now, if your priority is
Welcome back, Okulan, to that's for my health tip of today. Well, the program is Good Morning, Leone, reaching you live from the Leone Broadcasting Corporation from Freetown. We'll move on to another issue to ensure that government delivers key deliverables to the people. The Chief Minister's Office embarks on service delivery clinics with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. Well, Honorable Fale is the Director of Community Relations and Citizens Engagement, Office of the Chief Minister's State House. Good morning, welcome to the program, Mr. Fale.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, viewers, and good morning, listeners.
Okay, so let our viewers understand the idea behind you having these clinics with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. What's the goal behind it?
Yeah, the goal, honestly, the goal is to walk in line with the aspirations and concerns and governance, particularly from two significant position papers. The New Year's National Address by President Julius Madabio did highlight key areas that we need to work on, and various key paragraphs, paragraph 10, 7, 10, 21, 23, 24, and 27, did highlight that this is a year of accelerated delivery and actions. Also is addressed to Parliament besides on the 7th of August this year. Also highlighted that particularly paragraph 18, we said the first session that this is the year of action and accelerated delivery. And again, when you take paragraph 302 of the President's speech to Parliament, it made it clear that this year of action and accelerated delivery will be focused on judging us as a government by completed projects and tangible improvements in people's lives. Again, if you take further to paragraph 304, that every ministry, department and agency will be held to a clear, measurable targets, judged by delivery, discipline, transparency, and value for money. Performance, he said, will be viewed by progress published, delays explained, and failures corrected. Taking those strong messages from the President, who is head of delivery of services in this country, the Chief Minister's office is a hub for coordination and is also there for supervision and monitoring for all service delivery across ministries, departments, and agencies. And again, you know that there has been the performance contract that we have signed by various ministries, departments, and agencies to highlight the priority areas that need to be completed as a target priorities. We also have the medium-term development plan that has been developed for us to make sure that between now and 2030 that there are various areas has been tied to the 5 big game changers. You're talking about Fitz Leone, the human capital development, and technology and innovation, youth employment and youth empowerment, and also the public sector reforms. To ensure that these particular priorities have been actualized into achieved targets and priorities. That's why the strategic delivery team in the Ministry of the Chief Minister's office have designed the clinics. Because every clinic we are in, we are calling upon ministry, departments, and agencies, and particularly the heads, to come and sit down with the ministry, with the minister, with the Chief Minister and his team, to ensure that what are the targets that we have for the next 12 months? What are the priority areas for the next 18 months? And it's only when we sit together, we make sure we listen to their views, their concerns, and limitations that we'll be able to address and make sure that the bottlenecks. So this has started to actually pay dividends, because the clinic started on the beginning of August. It lasted up to about 4 or 5 days. It was well attended by all ministry, departments, and agencies. I'm talking about the heads, the ministers, and the heads of the sectors. They were all there so that we all could sit together and harmonize these issues. Now, 12 ministries have been dealt with. They've been asked to go back again to look at all their priority areas to make sure that for them to use the smart analysis, which ones are specific, which ones can be measured, which ones can be achieved or achievable, which ones are realistic, and which ones will be time bound. So we are taking the first set for about 12 months period so that we ensure that most of these targets are being actualized. Because President is really zooming on now on service delivery, actions, actionable projects that will change the lives of you and I. If you look at the fixed Leone, how much are we going to make sure that we produce rice, that will reduce our dependence on importation? Also, we are looking about the prices of staple food. How far are we going to go to ensure that we continue to reduce the price of the staple food that we have? How much also are we going to do in terms of human capital development? For example, the health sector, how many hospitals have we identified to be built, and for how many also diagnostic centers have we identified to be established? Also, taking it further to education, we've all realized that government has increased the enrollment. That is the quantity. But the problem here is, the concern here is the quality of education. How are we going to work on that? So also the roads and infrastructure. you've realized that again, government has decided to embark on construction of bridges where we had ferry crossing points. Government has done the one for Manoa, they've done the one at Gendema, and which has started to impact positively.
Now, these MDs that you engaged, you know, according to you've engaged already 12, you know, what were some of their concerns? Because the thing is, yes, you want them to perform, you know, you appraise them, because it is the Chief Minister's office that appraises, you know, MDs across the board. But then did they also tell you some of their challenges? And one of them is that, you know, late disbursement of allocations, you know, some of them, I mean, subvented ministries, departments, and agencies, or other agencies, they say they are not getting the resources for them to probably do what is expected of them. That is one challenge. I don't know how that was discussed.
But those are some of the beauties of these clinics. Because when you sit down together in a friendly, open, transparent, and fair table, where discussions are being done in the best interest of service delivery in the country, then you'll be able to realize
if you have to deliver service, you have to have the resources.
Absolutely, that's where I'm coming now. And we are talking about capacity building. One of the issues that came up and have been coming consistently have been issues of capacity. And when we realize where capacities are, and people need to be capacitated in terms of training, in terms of making sure that their projections or their presentation have been done properly, then the Chief Minister's office will come in and support those areas. Also in areas of resource mobilization or availability. There are classic examples during this school. We are in the Ministry of Basic Education had issue in terms with the local government where they had issues regarding disbursement of funds. Those issues came up, and within just minutes, the Chief Minister contacted the relevant authorities so that those bottlenecks will be clear. That's one of the beauties of this.
But you just mentioned that yes, school enrollment has increased significantly across the board.
Yeah.
You know, we now see more people in school. But then you also have concern about the quality. So now, do you see value for money? Because government spends a lot in education.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you see value for money? Absolutely. If you consider the level years of literacy, that disadvantage, most of them go to the don't work consistent. Most of them is not there because parents die along the line. But again, after reflection, what is the geopolity reflects on the system? How are we to close this gap? This is a gap that has been created for over decades now. How are we to close the gap is by investing in human capital development, by pumping more money. That's why the budget in this country, 22% of the budget has been allocated for education. Now we started to see enrollment. The community space is being occupied. Now we have to start to look at quality now. What are we going to do about quality? That's why you and I come to court. The parents, the religious councils, the smaller schools, the supervisors of schools, the lecturers, all of us. We cannot meet in isolation. Only President George Barani can solve this problem. It takes all of us. And when you hear the Chief Minister always say, together we are delivering, together we deliver, he actually means
this school that's what I want now. This is not just engaging MPs in the offices, but it also has to do with the outreach outside from that one singular projects and programs that present. We are told that there is a single office in sending the challenges to see what we want. But we need to see yourself because we know exactly how to tell us, we know what we are supposed to do and what we've done. You also reach out, out of the offices to see how we are progress are implemented.
of course, they are there to make sure that the agency is responsible for monitoring and evaluation of projects across the country. You also have civil society organizations. You also have power chiefs. You also have all the agencies. You also have even the members of parliament. That is where you had the president in paragraph 309 of president the address to parliament. The president made it very clear. If I could read from what he said, honorable members remain close to your district. Listen to your people, bring the priorities into this chamber, enact sound laws, exercise responsible oversight, and protect public resources. So the responsibility lies on the door of all of us. Together we are living together working. So this clinic is not only a motivation. Initially, some people thought it was religion, but now we decide to appreciate by coming together, harmonizing all these activities, prioritizing them based on the ones that we can monitor, the ones we can actualize, the ones that we can complete within the time frame. We go for that. What kind of feedback we got, from these two institutions we engaged so far?
What's the feedback?
The feedback is very positive. You can tell from the discussions that there is openness, there's trust in the process, and they are also participating well. Now 12 ministries, departments and agencies we are dealt with. Now the next phase will be 19 of them from the 31st of this month, from August, the first, from September, beginning of September, we'll be dealing with another 19. We're having them some in clusters or some, singularly, so that we ensure that they harmonize their presentations, bringing all their priorities together, priority areas, so that we can sit down. And by January next year, we'll have a media assessment to see which ones have we completed, where the bottlenecks are, what are the limitations, what are the discrepancies, so that together we'll be able to address that. Because this as President said, this is a year of real actions. It doesn't mean that this is the end, the be-all and the end point. No, but it's a turning point in the lives of all of us.
Thank you.
We need everybody on board to ensure that these services are being delivered that will change our lives in a positive way.
Thank you very much. He is the Director of Community Relations and Citizens Engagement, Office of the Chief Minister, State House, Honorable Robin Fanny. Well, viewers, we quickly move to another segment of the program, which is a review of a local tablet. So the first thing I have here this morning is the Africa 24 Communications newspaper, and its banner headline states, Fire Mambo residents encroach the mountain. Massive protest on the way. IGP alerted. Well, these stories and a host of others are found in the front pages of Africa 24 Communications.
Now, from Africa 24, I move on to New Vision. New Vision says BP Julia Jallo pushes to strengthen local governance. Minister Kenyan Ballet meets UN Women. Country representative finance continues consultations. These are some of the items in the New Vision newspaper.
Echo newspaper banner headline states, don't sign blinding one's bill over constitutional amendment bill as Supreme Court challenge laws. Pending court ruling, PPRC suspends APC leadership transition. This stories and also others we can find on Echo newspaper.
From the Echo newspaper, I move on to the Freetown Daily newspaper, and it says, Ministry of Energy faces questions over 35,200 shortfall in Lungi projects. Also here, Dr. Ibrahim Bangura orders Supreme Court review of amendment bill. These are some of the headlines in the Freetown Daily newspaper.
My final pick is the political newspaper, and its banner headline states, Child Health hailed ahead of AU roadmap. FBC campus road dump site cleared. IRCSL calls for dialogue over constitutional stalemate. These stories and also others you can find on the political newspaper.
Now quickly, I move on to the Premier News, which happens to be my final paper, I don't know the list, and it says, court case halts PPRC directive on APC tenure. Health Training Minister swearing about service as he takes over Foreign Affairs Ministry. Well, that is how we say. These are the, if you want to know more about what are in the papers today, go and have yours. But then quickly, let me just go to our guest here this morning. I'll start with and check, and from the check back from the inside of the council. In very few seconds, what do you think should be the way out of this? You know, what seems to be a quagmire, a constitutional quagmire? In a few seconds, please.
Mr. Coach, let us be very honest. Think about the country's interest and do the right thing.
All right.
Based on the constitutional, provisions.
Right. Okay. Honorable MN, how do you think, as a country, we can get out of this stalemate? Because it seems as though now everybody is interpreting the constitution. We have got a lot of numbers of lawyers right now, interpretations different. It depends on where the person stands. you know, if you talk to somebody from the opposition, he or she has something else to say.
Even the lawyers have their own.
Yes, if you talk to a politician from the SFPP, but the same. But then, how do we get out of this in very few seconds, please?
One way to get out of this is to use a national lens and to look at the whole constitutional amendment as a development move, not as an individual benefit. Second, the Inter-Religious Council representative is here, Alhaji is here. He said they consulted their congregate, and then what the feedback was, because they don't know the merits and the demerit of the familiar with the PR. So now it's our responsibility to tell them about the PR. For my explanation here, I think when he goes back, they have to retake and do their position, because PR is talking about peace and cohesion, tranquility. I think the PR is well seated in that position to maintain peace and stability in terms of peace, in terms of economic benefits, in terms of inclusion. It's just that we don't have time. But I will have loved to really flesh out the merits of the PR and because this is the burning issue. This is what people want to know about the PR and the 50+1. What are the merits and the merits? And how are we going to use this? How is it going to benefit Sierra Leone economically, and
Honorable, the conversations continue definitely. It is not going to stop here. Honorable Mustafa Musa, Selu, representing Muhammad District, and is also SLB. Now, Honorable Bufari, service delivery versus resource availability.
Yes.
Yes, in very few seconds.
This is the year of action and accelerated delivery, and the government will be actually rated based on the projects that have been completed and how those are going to impact the lives of the common people. And the President is very committed to this, and that's why the Chief Minister's Office has actually identified this period for strategic service delivery clinics, MDA, so that we can all sit together and prioritize these priorities to ensure the ones that can be achieved, what are their limitations, or where the bottlenecks are, so that those areas can be dealt with immediately. So that together we'll be able to deliver in the best interest of all of us.
Thank you so much. He is Honorable Robin Farley, now serving as the Director of Community Relations and Citizens Engagement Office of the Chief Minister, as they are rolling out a service delivery clinic. According to India 112, we have many more to cover anyways. But then that is how we say goodbye. It has been Good Morning, Sierra Leone, reaching to you live from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television. Many thanks to the entire production team, especially producer Daphne Zainab Kamara. I am Sheikh Usman.
And I am Esther Sako. Quickly take account of the day from Canadian Educator, a photo one. And it says, we don't change what we are, we change what we think, what we are. Good morning, Sierra Leone returns tomorrow. I have been Esther Sako. We cannot close the program without wishing our executive producer.
Today is her birthday. Yes, Samantha. Today is Samantha's birthday. Happy birthday to you, Samantha. And wish you many more birthdays and many more years, in peace and in good health and in prosperity.
I will invite you.
We wish you all the best, our very own Salmataba. Well, good morning, Sierra Leone returns tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. But stay glued to your public service broadcast at SLC if you can. Goodbye.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available brown gold natural cocoa powder, sunny gold brown sugar, neat fufu flour, shito, pisa, and moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.
SLBC is the national broadcaster and award winner for a reason. We produce only the best.
At SLBC, our programs are dedicated to addressing